Yo, what's up, guys? My name is Jay Dennis. I'm dressed fancy. Drink it in. So, you've been hearing me talk a lot about Megadeth lately on my podcast. Well, today I'm going to do a video about their new compilation album, Warheads on Foreheads. 35 years in Megadeth, 35 tracks on this 3-disc collection. It's a thick boy, and it's not a trifold, it's a quad fold, whatever you call it. So it's visually appealing, it's thick, it's 3 discs, and if you're not streaming it, this is a cool way to get into them beyond the greatest hits album that came out in 2005, which was more representative of what they had going on, and they've had like 6 odd albums come out since then. So let's talk about how representative is this compilation of their 15 album career. So I want to start with the good stuff. If you're a Megadeth fanatic, new or old, you came of age in the 80s, you saw them back in the day, or you're like me and you've been religiously listening to them for like almost the past year, been on and off with them since like 2004 when I was introduced to them. This is a good album for collectors, Megadeth fans alike, that just kind of want to have all their stuff. And also, if you're a brand new Megadeth fan, the track list on here is decent enough to gauge some interest and kind of give you a decent representation of, I would say, for like the high points of their career, it's good representation, but as for like the last 2 decades, it's subpar. And that's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about some of the shortcomings of this album, because I know Dave Mustaine handpicked these himself, and I'm a little confused. Maybe the singles they wrote and some of the obvious picks were maybe closer to him, and if that's the case, I can respect that. This is purely speculation and my opinion. But basically, the Greatest Hits album that came out in 2005 had 16 tracks from like the first 8 of the 9 albums that existed. It didn't have anything from So Far, So Good, So What. This one does. Did I say So Far, So Good, So What? Sorry, I meant Killing Is My Business and Business Is Good. Not a single track off the first Greatest Hits album. This one has 3, and they're 3 good tracks. So good representation there. The only 3 tracks that are on the Greatest Hits album and not on here are the title track, Peace Sells, But Who's Buying?, Kill the King, and Prince of Darkness from the Risk album. Other than that, this is basically the Greatest Hits album that came out in 2005. So, like 6 albums have happened. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 6 albums have happened since the last Greatest Hits album came out. And aside from Dystopia, 5 of those albums, but, also 7 albums in a row, only have 1 track per album on here. So this is my biggest issue with this album, is the spread, okay? So 15 albums worth of music on here, but 7 of the albums, so roughly half their discography, only has 1 track each. So that's 7 tracks out of 35. Half of their discography only makes up a fifth of this. Whereas you take 6 tracks from Rust in Peace. Rust in Peace has 9 tracks, and 6 of the songs made it on here. Great album, by the way, but that's a lot of tracks. And then 4 from Dystopia, which 4 is not a huge number, but you would think maybe 2 to 3 tracks per album. Some of them 3 to get to 35. 2 to 3 max per album would be equal representation. But obviously some albums like Risk, Super Collider, they're polarizing albums. They're not everybody's favorite. I can see why Dave only chose 1. But from the years 2001 to 2011, 10 years, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 albums in a row that are pretty damn heavy. World Needs a Hero, System Has Failed, United Abominations, Endgame, and 13. All pretty damn heavy albums. Only have a track each, and that's pretty weak. And again, Rust in Peace, one of the greatest metal albums of all time, has 6 of 9 tracks on here, a few of which are already on the other Greatest Hits album. So overall, my my main complaint with this album is just the lack of representation from the albums that have came out since the last Greatest Hits album. But I will say the noteworthy tracks, I think I wrote down 12 or 13 here. The noteworthy tracks on here that make this worth, make this easier to purchase are 3 tracks off of the Peace Sells album that made it on here. Good Morning Black Friday, easily one of the best tracks he could have put on here. Devil's Island and Conjuring. I think those are all non-singles and those are all great. I can see why he'd put Wake Up Dead on there, but I didn't put that down as a noteworthy one because that's just kind of a given. Set the World Afire from So Far So Good So What. Excellent track. Rust in Peace Polaris, the actual title track from Rust in Peace, one of my all-time favorite Megadeth songs. Really glad he put that one on here. Five Magics. Just another kind of like, oh, okay. Good non-single representation. Reckoning Day had a music video back in the day, so I'm not sure if that was a single or not, but one of my favorite tracks from Euthanasia, probably one of my favorite Megadeth songs altogether. Wanderlust from Risk. The fact that on the last Greatest Hits album they chose Prince of Darkness, which was like, obviously, like if anyone's going to take a good song off of Risk, it's going to be that. Replaces it with Wanderlust, a song that has like country undertones in it. Very interesting choice, so no hate there. It's very noteworthy. Blackmail the Universe, a solid opening to System Has Failed. Surprised Kick the Chair didn't make it on here, because those are very heavy Megadeth songs. Very much a return to form, for the most part, that album. From United Abominations, Washington Is Next. Another excellent Megadeth track that's one of my favorites. So it's, but again, there could have been another United Abominations track on here instead of like an additional Rust in Peace or an additional Peace Sells or Dystopia song. I don't know. With Super Collider, they chose Kingmaker, which I can see why you'd only take one song from Super Collider. That would probably be the song to choose. I also think that Beginning of Sorrow, Cold Sweat, and Off the Edge are excellent tracks as well. Every Megadeth album is worth listening to, in my opinion. It's worth giving it a fair shot and like a re-listen to. And then, from the Dystopia era, Death From Within. That was a very noteworthy track. The other 3 tracks he put on this compilation were all singles. So, overall, good for new Megadeth fans. And if you're just a collector and you want to catch them all for Megadeth. But overall, it kind of stung a little bit to spend $20 on this. But I just wanted to support the band. I've been listening to them on Spotify pretty religiously. Bought a couple of their old CDs from a used CD store, but that doesn't really help them. So ultimately, I just did this to support the band and to make a video about it so I could have a hard copy. But other than that, I wouldn't have bought this because this was not a very great compilation. And I think a lot of people aren't that excited about it. But there are a few amazing selections on here, like Good Morning Black Friday from Peace Sells, Rust in Peace Polaris, Blackmail the Universe, Death From Within. So out of 35 tracks, a fraction of them are very much worth listening to. But I mean, overall, they're all amazing songs, but they're all just singles. You may as well just buy the Greatest Hits album that came out in 2005. Because basically, again, the representation of the last decade and a half is very weak on here. It only makes up a fifth of it. And I'll say that again. 7 albums only have 1 track each, and that's roughly half the discography, and it makes up a fifth of this. So, but huge fan of Dave Mustaine. If he actually selected these himself and these songs are from the heart, no hate. It's my opinion, it's my video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. And if you want to support Megadeth, go to Target or somewhere that sells it. Buy it off their store. I don't know. Peace.